Good evening. We want to thank those of you who have joined us on this Zoom webinar this evening for the Chinese Immersion Middle School update. I can see attendees are joining still pretty quickly at this point, so we are going to give people another minute or two before we get started. Good evening. If you've just joined us in the last minute or two, we are going to get started in about a minute. We've got still some attendees rolling in, and so wanted to give people a chance to get with us before we get started. We'll start in 1 minute. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us. We're going to go ahead and start our conversation tonight about Chinese immersion and the middle school update.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Ott. I'm the Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction and Innovation for the district.
And I'm Jennifer Luzensky. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. We are pleased to be with you this evening.
Absolutely. Tonight, we have a couple of goals. One is to share just high-level information about how the middle school program for Chinese immersion is shaping up, and then provide an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end, and we'll get you answers as we can. So we're in a webinar format because we anticipated a large number of attendees. And so that's that, and we'll make sure you have, again, that opportunity to ask questions through a link at the end, and we'll get back to you in a day or so. So let's go ahead and begin, Jennifer.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen, Kelly, and we do, because we know some people could not participate in this tonight, we are recording this session, and it will be posted to the district website for those of you who may want to watch it, or perhaps you have a friend who wasn't able to attend. So we will get this posted soon for people who maybe weren't able to join us.
Great. our names and hit it one more time. There we go. Just to kind of give us a timeline and couch us on where we're at in the process. This is our 5th year of having Chinese immersion. It does not seem like it was that long ago where we were just beginning the kindergarten at Wolf Springs. And you can see we continue to add grade levels as we build this out and go looking forward into middle school. So we are still about 15 months out from our first middle school Chinese immersion students hitting middle school at Aubrey Bend in that 23-24 year. And then a year later in the 24-25 year, we'll have our first 6th graders at OTMS. So again, we have about 15 months. We have a nice high level view for you today, and a little time to continue to work through details and continue to communicate. So one thing we want to make sure that is very at the forefront of our conversation tonight is that the Chinese immersion programming at the elementary, as you're very aware, is a 50-50 dual language program. And as we move into middle school, and this is something we've been saying for multiple years, students will have 2 classes in Chinese or at any given time. So that's the model. As students enter into middle school, we want to make sure that they have plenty of room in their schedule to take advantage of all the new opportunities and make choices and have flexibility as they prepare to enter high school. So Jennifer and I are going to spend a little bit of time talking about the goals and the considerations that were made as the middle school program was conceived. We work very closely with programs across the country and some groups that are many more years into this, and they have been excellent partners and guides in this conversation. When Jennifer and I and our team really sat down and started thinking about the middle school experience for our students, there were 5 things that were really emerged as goals. The first being is continuing to strengthen the Chinese Mandarin language learning and continue on that progress up the ladder of language acquisition and continue to reach higher and higher levels of proficiency. Secondary, we wanted to ensure that, especially at middle school, as we're staring down high school, we want to make sure that core content, students develop a depth in the core content and have rigorous instruction in their core content. Third, the engaging course design, because at this level, students will have very good skills in the area of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. We want to make sure it's a very engaging course design with lots of opportunities to share and partner. We also wanted to make sure it aligns with the middle school philosophy, where engagement and partner work and design thinking can live and breathe. Fourth, sustainable staffing. We want to make sure that whatever model or whatever program is in place, we have it built so that we can staff it with high quality teachers that are licensed by the state of Kansas. And then this concept of flexible participation. As students enter middle school, we know that different families have different goals academically for their students, and we want to make sure that there is a space for different families to make different choices for their students as they consider all the options that are available at middle school. Jennifer will spend a little bit more time later speaking to each of those a little bit more in depth, but we wanted to get those in the air as we were talking about this. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to share what the middle school immersion model will look like. We feel like it's a nice balance of those 5 goals. And go ahead and hit that first little thing. There's actually 2 parts to the program. The first part is Chinese language arts. This should be of no surprise. If you're going to maintain or continue in the Mandarin Chinese immersion program, you would be required to take this elective. That's it's like an oxymoron, it's required elective. If you haven't had a student in middle school, Students at middle school have 3 electives at any given time during the year. So this would take one of the 3 electives and leave students with 2 other electives for which they could take all sorts of different things. So this will be just what you would expect. This is the core Chinese learning class where we will focus on reading, writing, speaking, and listening, language acquisition. Then we'll couple this with some options for students. So this is where families can start to make choices that make the best sense for their student and their goals for their kiddo. So kiddos will have an option at each grade level as they progress through middle school to take 1, both, or 0 of the courses there in black. So these are what we're calling optional electives. So these are optional pieces of being in the middle school Mandarin Chinese immersion program. They are both semester electives. One is Chinese immersion humanities. Chinese language will be the focus. The acquisition piece of Mandarin, of reading, writing, speaking, and listening in Mandarin will be the primary learning objectives. However, the context within which students learn will be Chinese literature, history and geography, and then Chinese culture concepts. Secondarily, this will support learning and standards and skills in the area of ELA and social studies. The other option a student may take is Chinese immersion STEAM. Very similar to its humanities counterpart. It's a semester-long elective that will focus again on acquisition of Mandarin, Chinese language, but secondarily, learning objectives and the context within which students learn will be science, math, technology, and fine arts, and reinforce those standards and contents along the way. Again, this is the model where a student there's differing variations of participation. So the lowest level of participation would be to continue in Chinese language arts and have 1.0 elective out of 3.0 over the year be taken up with Chinese. Then students can add either a 0.5 or a 1.0 and take both classes to even expand the footprint of Chinese in their schedule. Students, if they take or don't take one of the black classes, it does not affect the next year. So a student could take Chinese language arts only as a 6th grader, and then a 7th grade take Chinese language arts, which is kind of the required piece to be in the program, and add the humanities piece. So it's very much a kind of choose your own adventure in middle school, with that Chinese language parts being the one anchor piece that we would require you to participate in to stay in the program. Did I miss anything, Jennifer?
So Kelly, I do want to add the Chinese language arts, the red piece there is a unique course for our Chinese immersion students. Yes. So Chinese is offered we're at Overland Trail Middle School and Aubrey Bend, that the children leaving the immersion program would go into their own course of Mandarin, because obviously they're coming in at a higher level. So that would be that unique course for them. And then the other thing I would add is those electives that students have a choice, because they're truly electives, to take 0, 1, or 2 in a given year. If a student takes the Chinese immersion humanities in 6th grade and chooses to participate again in 7th grade, it will be different learning opportunities. They can take it all 3 years, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, without having a redundancy of the curriculum or the learning experience. So there'll be a course for them at each year. And Kelly, I've just been made aware that they can only see my face. They can't see your face. So I don't know if there's a way that we can revise that. But I think those are the important things to know, that Chinese language arts is unique to our students who are coming from the immersion program. And again, total choice for total elective slots in middle school for students, there are 3. So 3 total. So let's go a little bit deeper into what really were the considerations that influenced the 5 goals that led to the creation of the middle school program. The first one is Chinese learning. And we know that students by middle school will bring a really robust set of skills to the table in terms of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And we want to grow that. We want to cultivate that in students. And so that's really, as you could see, that's the underlying goal of any of the options in the middle school experience. But coupled with that, what we refer to as portability of language is we want to make sure that we're building the language that they need for the type of communication in Chinese they will do in their future. So whether that's preparing for an AP test, an advanced placement test, whether that's social communication, eventually they want to travel, or there's family members, or they really see using the Chinese language in their career choice. We want to make sure that we're not pigeonholing language to specific content areas and vocabulary, but building a robustness of the language that will serve them well, regardless of what it is they choose to do with their Chinese language in the future. The second thing that certainly is important when students join us, regardless of the age, but as they move on to middle school, the depth of core learning is really of central importance. And so we want to be sure that in the courses your students take in middle school, that we are equipping them for success in middle school and beyond. So if we think about the robustness or depth of academic language in science classes and social studies classes and even mathematics, we want to make sure that they are getting language learning experiences in English that will help them to move forward. Secondly, we want to be sure that for their learning, they have appropriate resources. So for example, if we think about social studies, a big focus of social studies at middle school is really learning about the history of the state of Kansas and even geography about Kansas. And so if you think about trying to locate resources in the Chinese language on the history of Kansas, you, I'm sure, can understand that might be a little bit difficult. And so it's very important to us that we align the curricular standards and the curriculum to the best language learning for students at that point. And then finally, scheduling. At middle school, there are some considerations with scheduling. I'll use the example of mathematics. So as students enter 6th grade, they have an opportunity to choose to remain in the on-level mathematics of 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, or to select into a more advanced track of math. Well, you might imagine that as we start to have students who are making some of their different choices at that point, scheduling classes that are unique to Chinese immersion gets more and more complex. Our goal is to try to minimize scheduling challenges for students and families as they move into middle school, because the choice is extremely important and a real tenet of the middle school experience for students as they move on into middle school. Other important considerations were engaging design. So as students move to middle school and they have electives available, choice and voice are important to them as a part of their learning. And so while we want the electives, the STEAM and the humanities, to focus on that Chinese language learning, it's so important to us that students also have opportunities for some choice and some exploration and just to really enjoy the design of these courses. Enhancing or supporting the core is a secondary focus, and thus the humanities and the STEAM focus. But really, this is our place where we want the students to be able to take that robust Chinese language they've built thus far and to use all of the interactive skills, reading, writing, speaking, and listening in the electives. And one way we will accomplish that is offering lots of opportunities for them to communicate with peers, share their learning with others, have conversations with the teacher of the course. So that engagement was a huge piece. And then certainly in the 5, almost 6 years we've been working in this program, we've learned a thing or two about staffing. And so we're taking those lessons and applying those to the considerations and then the goals of the program. The first is, as we think about the courses we offer, we wanted to prioritize that Chinese language licensure. And by prioritizing potential educators to teach who have that Chinese language licensure, we can get the best possible candidates for the position. By eliminating the content area requirement, a dual licensure potentially, so Chinese in science or Chinese in social studies, we have a much larger applicant pool and we can ensure getting the best person for the position. We are thrilled to announce, and we'll have a little introductory video for you here shortly, that we have made already the hire of the gentleman who will teach the first cohort at Aubrey Bend. And he will be joining us next year, which we're thrilled about. It allows him a chance to really get into buildings, get to know students, get to know families, get to know our program, but also to work with us very closely to develop the curricular documents for these courses and to help with the selection and identification of instructional resources that will be used as a part of these learning experiences. So this long runway is going to be really made valuable through the addition of Mr. Meng to our program. So with that, I think we'll take a look at his little introduction. And I do want to remind people when we get closer to the end of the presentation, we'll have a Google form for question submission. So this is Mr. Meng, who will be joining us in the fall of 2022, and then beginning to teach that first wave of Chinese immersion students at middle school at Aubrey Bend Middle School in fall of 2023.
Yeah, I'll be joining Aubrey Bend Middle School in the fall. During my first year, I'll be helping to create the middle school Chinese immersion program, and I look forward to meeting as many of you as possible during this process. Just let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I was born and raised in China, Xi'an, China, home of the Terracotta Warriors. I came to the US in 2013 to study at Illinois Wesleyan University. Currently, I am wrapping up my master's and doctoral studies at Washington University in St. Louis, and certified to teach Chinese, French, and also middle school mathematics. And as part of my PhD program, I also obtained a graduate certificate in language instruction and acquisition. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to help create a program that is both enriching and fun for the students. I'm really excited about this opportunity, and I look forward to joining you all in August.
So that is Mr. Meng, who will be joining us and helping to lead the initial wave of students through that first year at Aubrey Bend Middle School, and we hope for many years to come. So again, as we think about the considerations, the goals for the development of the middle school program, these were the things that were important to us. We wanted to afford students and families flexible participation. We recognize families have different goals for students, and knowing that in middle school there are more options for students, we wanted to allow that flexible participation. So a family and a student could choose to do 2 of the 3 elective courses of participation in Chinese immersion, or they could opt for that partial participation. And you can choose every year. It doesn't have to be the same thing in 6th grade as 7th grade and 8th grade. So the 1.0 elective of just the Chinese language arts, or the possible addition of a semester of one of the either the STEAM or the humanities courses. We worked very hard to align this to that middle school philosophy as students grow and are starting to have more ownership and independence of learning, to have more choice and flexibility for them. And again, to honor those family goals, because it's a blessing of Blue Valley. There are a lot of opportunities and a lot of choice for students starting in middle school. And we wanted to do the best we could to restrict or limit those options for students as they join us. We want them to stay and love the Chinese immersion program. So Kelly, if I missed anything with those, feel free to add them.
You know, the only thing I can think of is the PE requirement. We didn't mention that. We are looking at, it's not finalized yet, but it's looking like there will be an option. Currently at 7th and 8th grade, students can opt to take PE virtually, which opens up, you know, at least a semester elective in their schedule. And we're looking at offering that for middle school for the, sixth graders in the Chinese immersion program only. So more on that later. We've got several months to kind of work through those details, but I did want to throw that out there as people are trying to think through, especially our fifth grade or our fourth graders, rising fifth grade families as they're trying to think about middle school. So what's next? We're on the next screen. There'll be a link where you can submit questions. We knew that the numbers were going to be very high, and we didn't want to miss anybody's questions. This allows us to get all of your questions in and respond to them in a timely manner. If you are a proud parent of a current fourth grade student at Wolf Springs Elementary and they're coming into fifth grade next year, we will have more information in this coming fall. This coming fall, right when enrollment starts to heat up and information starts to come out about middle school, that Chinese immersion information will be bundled right in there with that. So look for much more information in the fall and obviously in the spring of next year as details kind of emerge and we get down to the nitty gritty of enrollment and details around classes and all that good stuff. So, and as information is available, if you have a kindergartner or a second grader, and we'll be sure to post things on the Chinese immersion page of the district website. The video of this will be posted there, and we'll continue to communicate through that way also. As always, Jennifer and I are very happy to entertain questions through email or phone call if you feel like you want to give us a ring. So let's go ahead and go to that next screen, Jennifer.
Yes, and Kelly, I would just add to the conversation, if you're, especially those of you who have students currently wrapping up fourth grade at Wolf Springs Elementary, if this is your first child that will be attending middle school, know that from your child's middle school, next year, starting probably in about the second quarter, you're going to get lots of information and opportunities to learn more about middle school in general, to help to deepen your understanding of what that looks like for students. And we'll continue to layer in those pieces that are unique to the Chinese immersion program for you.
Very good. So in conclusion, thank you very much for spending a half hour with us today. We knew we wanted to get this information out as soon as we had solid program information for you. We're going to leave that screen up for a good 3-4 more minutes, 5 minutes maybe. And so if you wanted to jot down that link or scan that QR code on your phone to get into Ask Questions. So again, thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening. And we look forward to working with your children and continuing to develop that middle school program for our kiddos. So have a good evening, and we will be back with you in the fall.
Thanks, everyone.